Mile High Huddle.
Before we get to the chat stream, I wanted to get your take on something that PFF said. Now, it's no secret that PFF has kind of been, I don't know, the contrarian when it comes to Garrett Bowles tropes, right? Especially since week 9 of last season. And it's true that he did play better down the stretch, but I can't remember the exact metric. I think they had him either as the highest or second highest graded pass blocking left tackle in the league from like week 9 on last season. And there have been several articles this offseason in which they've praised Garrett Bowles, and they had another one in a sense here just today, or it might have came out yesterday. Nick Kendall had the article for us at milehighhuddle.com, but they basically went through all 32 teams and said, here's who we, based on, our grading system and all that, here's each team's most underrated player. Garrett Bowles got the selection for PFF. Now, I don't necessarily I can read their blurb if you want to, but I want to get your thoughts on it, but what more interests me, Zach, is who else or who might have been a more appropriate selection as the most underrated Bronco? Because Bowles, I can understand an argument for it. I'm not going to pretend that there's no merit there or he's like the worst player in the world, because he's not. He's a bonehead sometimes, but he's not the worst player in the world. The most underrated on the roster, that I'm not so sure. Who would be your pick?
It wouldn't be Garrett Bowles. I mean, I can understand not calling him a bust because he's quite not there yet. He's kind of teetering on that line, but underrated, not in the least, Chad. I would go with someone like Kareem Jackson. It's hard when you discount the young players because there's so many young players on the Broncos roster. You can't really say A.J. Johnson. You can't say Dalton Risner. You can't say Phillip Lindsay. They're not underrated yet because they're not really proven yet as bona fide NFL players. So Kareem Jackson, he's kind of a borderline household name. He's a good player, but not a lot of fans know how good he can be or how he was last year in this defense. I'm going K-Jack, Chad.
K-Jack is an excellent choice. We kind of clown on Todd Davis sometimes because of his lack of coverage skills and the twitchiness, but he is underrated as a run-stuffing linebacker in the league. If he would have been in the NFL even 15 years ago, he would have been a top 5 linebacker just because he's such a good run stuffer, does not miss tackles, etc. I think there could be an argument for Davis. I think there could even be a fair argument for Justin Simmons because even though he was named second-team All-Pro by the Associated Press last year, let us not forget he was snubbed for the Pro Bowl. Sure. So it's not a question of is he underrated. Absolutely, Justin Simmons was underrated by the NFL last year. So on that side of the ball, offensively, I'm more inclined to agree with you in terms of who's really proven enough yet to be on the radar. I mean, who? Graham Glasgow? He just got paid a big fat contract. Right. How could you really say he's underrated? Who's the next accomplished veteran? I mean, it's Cortland Sutton and Phillip Lindsay, who came in 2018. They're not quite in the league long enough, so I'm with you on that. But I think on the defensive side of the ball, there are some solid options. Garrett Bowles, to me, I can understand the argument, but he wouldn't be the first choice.
I mean, my first inclination, I saw a comment say A.J. Johnson. That was my first thought, chat, was to say him. But he had one good season, but he's really not proven enough to be considered underrated or overrated or anything in between that. I would maybe say Phillip Lindsay because the Broncos clearly disrespected him this offseason, bringing in Melvin Gordon for the price they paid for him. They obviously don't see much value in having a 2-time 1,000-yard running back, a former Pro Bowler. I think on the Broncos, he is underrated, Phillip Lindsay, but as a whole, outwardly to the rest of the fan bases around the NFL, I don't think Lindsay's that underrated.